right?
All right. Well, hello and welcome, Achievers. I'm Machin McDonald, your host of the Productivity Pit Stop. For those of you that may not know me or are new here, I'm an award-winning strategic business coach and mindset coach, #1 best-selling author and founder of the Pro Brilliance Leadership Institute. My mission is to help small business owners bring their A game to their hero or their heroine's journey so that they can win at business and in life. And the purpose of this broadcast is to provide you a break in the action with some great information, methodologies, and processes so you can activate your energy, get your mojo back, become more focused, and get back on the track of business and get more traction to win the race. The way we do it here at the Pit Stop is by interviewing top thought leaders, coaches, successful entrepreneurs that can share best practices of what actually works in the game of business so you can borrow the brilliance and put it into action. And remember, action leads to traction. So today we have Catherine Chadwick. Whoops, my screen just went away there. Hold on. Whoa. I love technology. Okay.
I think I'm still here.
Yes, you are. You are. I'm the one that went away. My head. All right. So Catherine is a registered nurse. She's also a practitioner of applied positive psychology and a certified transformational life coach. She also is the founder of You've Got Nurse and the Sunshine Quotient. Welcome, Catherine. How are you today?
Machin, thank you so much for having me. This is fabulous. And I'm doing very well today. How about you?
You know, I'm doing just right for a Tuesday.
Okay,
How's
good.
that?
So it's always good to be just right for the moment you're in, right?
That's it. Moment by moment, right? Mm-hmm. Anything can change in the next moment, which is what I always need to remember.
Well, that's fascinating because that's all we really have is one moment at a time, right?
You know, it really is. And it's in this, the one phrase I always like to remember in that, in this very moment, all is well. Right? You know, our brain can shoot out in the future and get us in trouble, or it can recall stuff and beat ourselves up, and, you know, it takes the energy away for sure. Uh-huh. So, Catherine, tell me about the Sunshine Quotient. You know, I've heard you talk about it a little bit in the past, and every time I hear you speak on it, it fills me. You know, this is maybe an overused word, but it fills me with joy when I hear you talk about it and hope.
No, so. You know, it's so I'm delighted to hear you say that because it fills me right up too. And it's really pretty fascinating because it came to me, I believe, as a download. And people were asking me at one point several years ago, like, oh my gosh, you're so bright all the time. What are you doing? And I'd say, yeah, you know, I have a high sunshine quotient. And I said that a few times and I thought, really, what am I talking about? You know? Yeah. And so I actually Googled sunshine quotient. And I thought, okay, I get it now, because it's a term that refers to lighting gradients in photography and radiology. But, you know, we are light beings. We're always emitting light and information. And so when you think of the people around you, everybody has a little bit of a different lighting gradient. You know, you go to a party and everybody's shining a little differently, right? Mm-hmm. Because we each are emitting the light and we each have our own perception of, you know, our interpretation of their radiance, right? Sure. And so I believe that our radiance is really our own calling card in life. Yeah, because how bright you are is really, you know, it's representative of your level of vibration, right? Mm-hmm. And your level of brightness is going to connect you with a certain other level of brightness people, right?
Yeah,
and
like attracts
like. Which it's all that law of vibration, and so and the reason I love it so much is because when you think about it, it's visual, mm-hmm. but it's also visceral, right? Because you know it's coming from you, mm-hmm. and it's not obviously going to be at the same level every moment of the day. It fluctuates.
Sure.
Because we're all influenced by what's going on up here, right? And what we're doing. But I started using it with my clients as a mindfulness breathing technique.
Okay.
Because if you, and we'll just do it, if you breathe in through the nose
Hmm.
and just feel the light coming in you, right?
This is my part that I was talking about. I love this.
Right. Just
Yeah.
feel the light coming in you and just feel yourself starting to glow from the
Mhm.
inside out, right? It's just like it's almost like your energy gets bigger
Yeah.
just as you do it. And if you can also visualize and feeling the warmth of it
Hmm.
on you, you just become so much calmer. And so, and obviously the act of breathing, stimulates the vagus nerve,
Yeah.
and which is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming part of the nervous system.
Hmm.
So, if I encourage people to just do that, breathe in through the nose, feel the light coming in, feel yourself glowing.
Yeah.
And if you blow out slowly through the mouth as if you're just gently blowing out a candle flame, just
Hmm.
it immediately calms you down
Hmm.
and makes you feel good, you feel bright,
Yeah.
and it gives you an opportunity to actually have a quiet mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that's the whole purpose of the mindfulness breathing, and it gives people an opportunity to have that intuition come in, right?
Yeah. Open it up.
Uh-huh. Open people up. And and I always describe it to them as take the time to connect you with you,
Right. Oh,
right?
I love that.
Yeah,
Love
take
that.
the time to connect you with you. And it's fascinating because it's so simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly something that is also a good reminder, because I think so many of us have the history
Yeah.
and the patterns of overcomplicating things.
Right. Thinking solves problems. Overthinking creates them. Right.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this piece. Because a lot of the listeners here are people that are in business and so forth, and there's a lot of stresses, a lot of pressures and tough things to navigate, and it's easy to get tipped over emotionally or emotionally hijacked into that disconnection to ourself.
Right.
Right, we're just kind of operating in the limbic system.
Mhm.
What do you tell people um, to remember that in that moment when they are tipped over, how do they remember to go, oh yeah, breathe and feel the warmth and the light? Because sometimes I know for myself, sometimes I can get addicted to the feeling of being out of control because I'm so good at it.
Oh,
It's a comfortable place. And it's like I go, no, slow down, breathe. And it's a real practice. So what do you tell somebody who's maybe just learning how to do this?
it's pretty much like learning anything. It's dedicating the time and
Mhm,
the repetition of it, really.
mhm.
And I've often encouraged people to just calendar it on their phone,
Oh,
uh,
set a reminder.
just several times a day, just to start establishing the habit. And so then, as you get more familiar with it,
Mhm.
when you start getting a little stressed, it'll come more quickly to you, like, oh, I can really just stop
Yeah,
and take a few breaths. And so I think the calendar is a marvelous start.
I think that's brilliant. I know for myself, I've done that in the past, and in moments where I actually don't even think I'm all that stressed, I'll do some breathing, and I recognize, whoa, I am more stressed than I thought I was. So
Uh-huh.
it's welcome, and just kind of slows things down, gets us back into this present moment where our real power is, right?
Well, absolutely, because it's getting back to just that moment.
Hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the trick, right? Is
Mhm.
expanding the present moments from where, to stay connected to ourself.
Mhm. That's another interesting thing, the concept of time
Mm,
and how some that and I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but I was listening to this gal talking the other day, and she was talking about Einstein and the relativity and
mhm.
how he explained that. And when you're sitting on a hot burner that's turned on high, right, a second can seem like an
Long
hour.
time. Yeah.
Right, right. And if you're kissing the love of your life, you know, it seems like a second, right?
Mhm,
And, an hour can seem like a second.
mhm.
And so it's the energy that we put into the moments, I
Yeah,
believe, that make a huge difference as well.
yeah.
So, and that's one of the reasons why I just love the breathing technique so much,
Mhm.
because I believe that it does give people almost a boost, as far as vibration and light.
Sure.
And when people are in a better mindset, they think differently,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah, if we don't think breath is important, try missing one, right?
Well, and that's the other thing is that it gives people, um, I believe, more of a relationship, more of a recognition of we don't really breathe ourselves.
Mm,
We don't really make our own heart beat one time, right?
mhm, mhm.
There's this energy
Yeah,
that we are a huge part of. We are a part of it.
yeah.
And so I think that also opens up possibilities of thinking about interconnectedness and
Mhm.
communication and how we do think differently. But yet we're really pretty much very much the same,
Yes. Yeah,
right?
for
We
sure.
have so many of the same capacities, and the recognition of those capacities allows us to develop them more, obviously,
Mhm.
because people have different perceptions and different experiences. But it's really kind of a fascinating journey once you start on it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, there's all kinds of coaches out there and a lot of great coaches, yourself included. Share with me or share with the audience, given your unique background with nursing and applied positive psychology and all the stuff that you're doing, how do your clients really benefit from the work that you do? What sets you apart from the other coaches out there?
I think I have a real affinity for finding the fun in life.
Mm,
Even amidst the ups and downs of it, I do believe a good sense of humor is a real plus.
mhm.
And it allows an easier transition, I believe, for trying on different perspectives, right, as to
Yeah.
how to look at things. Um, and I always start with people in the arena of their health,
Okay.
because I believe that health is just so the important basis of everything. I mean, we have this body as this vehicle for the length of time that we're here,
Yeah.
and our thoughts affect actually our biochemistry. Our
Sure.
our thoughts, influence our body. Oh my goodness, way much more than I think most people have
Yeah.
been, led to believe.
Yeah.
And so I typically start there with people because everybody wants to be healthy, right?
Mhm.
And some people's capacity for different levels of health are different. And obviously that's a consideration. But I have been, I listen to a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I love
Oh,
his
sure.
work, and I love his work because he's a scientist, and he has the documentation, he has the studies, right?
Mhm.
And it wasn't that long ago I read that every day we think between 60,000 and 70,000 thoughts a day,
Mhm.
and 90% of those thoughts are the same as they were the day before.
Yeah.
And so when people keep dragging in their yesterdays into the present day,
Yeah.
I mean, it just reveals a whole different level of self sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And right. And so I think that starting with the health and educating people, showing people how their thoughts and their choices
Hmm.
affect their physical being. I think that's a marvelous place to start because that's the basis of how anybody is really going to blossom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're just as much a part of nature
Hmm.
as that flower that's blossoming or the grass that's growing or the the river that's running, right?
Yeah. It's our
Um,
nature to just grow and expand, right? To do more,
expansion,
more.
expansion.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I do love the sunshine quotient and being able to use that with people because it gets them in tune with, oh, I'm really more of an energetic and an expanding energetic being than
Mm.
maybe had a previous understanding of.
Yeah.
And so I always start with health for people because and in my own experience, it's been pretty interesting because I have, I had a lower lumbar area that
Mm.
collapsed.
Oh,
So at the age of 23, I'm in this three-year window of having lost my job because I was working as an ICU nurse, and the toll of dragging all these people and equipment around was way too much. I bent over one day to pick up a piece of paper from the floor, and I couldn't stand back up.
oh.
And I couldn't use my left leg. I was walking with a walker. They wanted me, they wanted to get this done right away, this repair. And oh
Mm.
my goodness, I didn't like the surgeon. And I had a 2-day tantrum. They couldn't wait to get rid of me, right? So, and so I went to Mayo Clinic and had this marvelous repair. But what's interesting, I learned so much from that
Mm.
because I was doing a job that I thought I was supposed to be doing, but was it my dream job? No.
No.
I was really good at it, however, looking back on that, if I'd had the wherewithal and
Yeah.
the knowingness that I have now, right? And that's the beauty of wisdom as you get going,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have stayed on that trajectory because I really have so much more to offer in this arena that we're talking about now,
Hmm.
right? Than doing the actual physical work.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating about that is I learned a lot about the power of decision at that time also.
Yeah. I've heard
You
you
know,
talk about that.
I had lost my apartment. I was sleeping on a friend's couch, and I had to wear this corset back brace, like
Hmm.
from breast to hip, with the metal stays up the back. And
Yeah.
my prescription was to walk at least a mile a day.
Mm.
And I was living in Florida at the time, and so I have my suitcase. I'm on the friend's couch, but I got 2 back braces and I had a couple of bikinis, and I went to that beach every day, rain or shine, heat wave or not, and I was a bit of a spectacle, in my getup, but I got up to 8 or 10 miles every day.
Wow.
And I would see a lot of the same people all the time, and people were cheering me on and, "You go, girl," right? And so it was just like, okay, because I had decided before I went to Mayo Clinic that this was not going to be my life.
Hmm.
I had options, right? And they
Yeah.
weren't necessarily easy ones. However, but boy, once you make that decision and you know that it's working for you,
Hmm.
it gives you a lot of fuel.
And talking about decisions, how do you discern that you're making the right decision in that moment? Because a lot of times, we people understand the importance of a decision and even sticking with it. And sometimes there's doubt of, is this the right decision? Oftentimes those forks in the road, we don't want to screw it up. So how do
Right.
you make that discernment of this is the right decision?
Well, I really love that word discernment
Hmm.
because I think that along with that is applied persistence, right?
Hmm.
There's a persistence that goes with the decision. And, and we've all probably done it ourselves. We make a decision and it's chiseled in stone, and darn it, that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
However, I think when we are so rigid in making that decision. We don't allow ourselves to really allow the information that's coming
Mm,
to us, and information comes to us all the time, right?
yeah.
So it's important to do a little evaluation. Is this really working? Is this how I had envisioned that it would serve me?
Mhm.
And I believe it's always evaluating and making those little adjustments, because most of our decisions, I don't believe, take us on the same trajectory, as if you draw that arrow back and let it go.
Yeah.
Even that arrow that's going is doing a little bit of this, even though we don't see it that way, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so there are always little adjustments to be made because there's always new information coming.
So what I'm hearing is have a clear vision of where you wanna get to, start out that way, and then be willing to, like you say, evaluate given the information where you are on that journey
Mhm.
and calibrate as needed.
Yep, I like that word calibration, don't you?
I do, that's why I use it a lot. I celebrate or calibrate, that's what I tell my clients, "What are we doing today, celebrating or calibrating?"
Well, that's really good. I like that. That's
Feel free to borrow it.
good. I'm gonna write that down. That's good.
Awesome. So, um, you mentioned something a little bit earlier where, um, with the sunshine quotient and what separates you as a coach is you like to, make it fun, bring the fun into it. Was that always your way? Where you naturally just had the ability to kind of find the good and the fun in situations, or was it something that you had to learn along the way?
I think that I started looking for the good in things at a very early age.
Hmm.
And without getting into all of that, right? It wasn't necessarily a situation that I would have sought out.
Hmm.
But I was there, and it was like, okay, you know, uh, there has to be a way to make this an enjoyable experience, right?
Hmm.
And not every moment, obviously, but I learned very early to depend on myself
Yeah.
to find the good in things. And that often led me to spend an awful lot of time on my own, right?
Mm.
And it was interesting. I went through a period of being a bit of a loner, and I would say I probably turned into a very elegant bully in high school.
Elegant bully. I like that term.
Right? And so it's like, and I had friends, and I was a
Mhm.
cheerleader and I played sports, and I think it was really the sports
Mm.
that I learned so much, and I always have said that the sports saved me.
Ah.
Because oh my goodness, because I learned so much about how the body operates, how to use it, how
Mhm.
to take care of it, and how far you can actually kind of abuse it a little bit,
Yeah.
and how forgiving it is on some levels, and on some levels, not at all. So that was a great learning experience. And then, of course, walking the beach all of that time,
Yeah.
that was a very humbling experience. And I have to say that I learned a lot from that.
During that time.
Right. And then, but gosh, the repair was fabulous. I went on 2 natural childbirths. I have beautiful kids,
Mm.
fabulous kids. I'm a grandmother now. They call me Cece, which is so fun. And these kids are fabulous. I got a black belt in karate. I
Wow.
have, and I actually wore it out. I went for the bigger, better, and improved version, and donations from the bone bank and rods and screws, and I do beautifully well.
Wow.
And I think it's a lot of persistence, that applied persistence,
Mhm.
and actually wanting and having a curiosity, really,
Great.
of how things work, and how the interpersonal relationships actually work.
Hmm.
And sometimes, obviously, everybody's changing all the time. So that's another thing to consider because, um, and that's the other one of another thing that I talk about people with health, and making the decisions, in order to be that person that you want to become.
Mm.
You're going to need to make different decisions. That person makes different decisions than what you're making now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's a learning experience for everyone as well. So I do have a lot of experiences professionally with a lot of patients and clients, and personal experience to draw from. So I
Mhm.
think, but what I really love is, at the end of the day, if you can't laugh at yourself, there's more work to do.
Boy, isn't that the truth? It's yeah, the better I get at practicing being the observer of myself, the funnier the show gets.
Oh, absolutely. And isn't being the observer just so fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that point, we're able to see where we want to make some changes, but the
Hmm.
judgment isn't there, and I think that's a wonderful thing to work with people on also, is to, teach them to be their own observer,
Hmm.
and to remove the judgment and say, oh, okay, honey, we could make a better choice here,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
A better choice. So when somebody comes to you, and you're helping them elevate their sunshine quotient, so to say, um, talk a little bit about how you might coach them with, like you said earlier, kind of the thoughts can actually affect our biochemistry. How do you help somebody in that regard with their thinking, with their mindset, and so forth?
I talk I ask questions,
Hmm.
and the basic question is, what would you love?
Hmm.
What do you want?
Hmm.
Because I believe that what people want and what they would really love to be living is connected to their purpose.
Hmm.
And I believe that when people are living a purposeful and meaningful life, then so much else just falls into place really quite easily. Because if people, you know, can visualize what they would love to be living, that affects the decisions that they're willing to make, right?
Yep.
And I think that purpose, has a lot to do with it. I also, with the mindfulness and, um, visualizing what they really want,
Hmm.
it allows people to also open up to listening to their own intuition, right?
Hmm.
And because they're what they want isn't, necessarily what I want, but it's not what I want. It's their life, right?
Sure.
And it's what they want and how they want to feel and what they want to accomplish. And so I honestly believe that, um, showing people and teaching them how their thinking affects how they operate physically as well,
Mm-hmm.
it gives them a better sense of direction as to how to get there, right?
Yeah.
And because we have a choice of what we think about, and it's not always easy to have that choice open up. And that goes back to learning about perception and learning how to be the observer, and all of it's all so interconnected, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that's the beauty of it is that if you can, visualize far enough out so the mind doesn't argue with you,
Mm.
it opens up your imagination more, right? And your imagination, I believe, is your imagination is different than my imagination, because, I imagine, that one day, oh my gosh, I'll be living by the ocean and I'll be sailing again, right? and you might be a mountain climber.
Mhm.
So, you have no interest in going to the ocean.
Yeah.
However, if you can spark people, help them to spark themselves and help them to open up their imagination,
Yeah.
because everything starts with the imagination, you know. And I love that quote by Einstein, match yourself to the vibration that you want, because that's what's going to get you there. Because if you become that vibration, then that becomes your reality.
Yeah.
And right. And that's not the exact wordage, but that's the gist of it, right?
Yeah.
And so everything is about vibration. And if people understand about the vibration and how the thoughts have vibration in themselves,
Sure.
what's so fascinating and it's heartbreaking sometimes is that how people are kind of mean to themselves in
Oh,
the way they talk to themselves, right?
yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, whoa, now wait a minute.
Yeah, I catch myself oftentimes when I'm coaching my clients and they'll start to beat themselves up. I'll just stop and I say, "Hey, could you be a little nicer to my friend over there?"
Right.
And they don't even recognize that they're doing it. They're like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
And I'm a big offender of that myself. We're probably all the most critical person in our own life, right? So,
Mhm.
and we've got to really lighten up in that regards for sure.
Oh, I think so because even that in itself, becoming aware of that um, allows people's vibration to come up a little bit more, and the higher your vibration, the more opportunities and the resources present themselves to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a different way of thinking than I believe the way a lot of people were brought up or programmed.
Hmm.
And I think it's a real enlightening experience for people to have a greater understanding of this, because the goal obviously is to help people to be as healthy and as independent as possible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and that part, I have a real passion for that, for people to feel good and to be as independent as they can be, because it's not that we're not interconnected, and it's not that we don't work together or love each other or
Mm,
want to work together and help each other, but gosh, this is really about you.
mm,
um, and just think about it, because I was having a conversation with somebody, and it just kind of fell out, and I said, well, there's so much more to my life than just helping you live yours. And
mm.
that I believe is something to really consider. It's not being selfish. It's just like feeding yourself what you need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We all have to
And
we're responsible for getting our needs met so that we can help others.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to be a whole person yourself in order to share
Yeah.
effectively,
Yeah.
right?
It's interesting going back to Einstein, because this whole concept is, it's nothing new. It's not quote new age.
Right.
Einstein used to say, whatever we say to ourselves before we look at something determines what we see.
Yes.
And tying that into like Joe Dispenza's work, I love where he says, rather than remembering your past, let's remember your future.
Hmm.
Right. We wake up and we're in that twilight and we kind of go back to, oh, these are the bills. Here's my aches and pains. And we kind of remember, put back together our life in that way
Right.
versus like, well, how do we want to put it together going
Hmm.
forward, and remember the future,
Right.
and I think that helps with that vibration as well. It creates a vacuum that pulls us forward, right? We're going to have different impulses throughout the day, different thoughts throughout the day,
Ah, of course. Right.
right?
Yeah. It's a fascinating process.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was listening to one of his podcasts the other day, and right along what you're saying about remembering the future, he said, instead of romancing the past, romance your future,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, what's one thing? We're on a platform here. You can talk to a lot of people. What's something that if you could tell the world, you know, do this or be this way, and you'll experience more joy and happiness and fun,
Mm.
what would you tell them?
I would say learn how to be you.
Learn how to be you. Say a little bit more about that.
Well, it's going back to the mindfulness and, connecting you with you.
Hmm.
I believe many of us have operated and sometimes still do, um, out of obligation,
Mm.
right? And not that all obligations are are negative, right?
Right, right.
But it's the way you operate, within that obligation makes a huge difference, right?
Yes.
And I believe that we can be really pretty much happy doing just about anything. It might not be a task that you particularly want to do, but if you go, into it, it's like, well, this is what I'm doing right now, and just think, getting this accomplished is going to really move me forward.
Hmm.
And you have an expectation that once you finish that task, that you're done with that and you're free to go to the next thing, right? And
Hmm.
so the desire really is to get the task accomplished and do it well and
Hmm.
have it serve you, right? And you have that expectation. And I believe that another thing that people aren't aware of is that everything is polarity. So the desire has a positive charge to it, and the expectation has a negative charge. And it's not good or bad, but it's like a battery, right? You
Hmm.
have to have both of them in order to, make things move forward, to make them functional for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so, it, if you're not thinking about the desire of accomplishing the task well, right, and having it serve you,
Hmm.
then, your positive charge is a little wimpy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's important to understand balance, and I think that's really what I mean is learn to be you. Learn how the natural laws actually work,
Yeah.
and how to use them effectively to serve you to your best advantage, and because serving yourself is using these laws and how everything operates.
Yeah.
And I think learning that is essential to moving forward on a positive note.
Got it. Got it. Any words for, that person that says, well, you know, being happy all the time just isn't realistic, and they kind of almost argue that it's okay to be unhappy.
Mm.
Any words around that? Is that just that's just some people's nature and they get to be that way? Or, is there something that can we can sprinkle to let them know that, there is another way? You might want to try it out.
Right. You might want to just, try it on for size, right? um, it's interesting because I think the mind often goes to a negative default
Hmm.
on its own because of past programming and survival, and you know,
Primal, yeah.
always on the
High
lookout
alert.
for what's going to the when's the other shoe going to drop, that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
mentality. And if it's possible to just give people just a little bit of encouragement and to
Mhm.
establish just a little habit, and it's not going to be a huge change. It doesn't make you a Pollyanna to start thinking on a positive note, right?
Right.
Because that's also creates the balance.
Mhm.
And so even just a little 1 degree shift is going to make a huge difference for a person over a period of time,
Yeah.
right? And so just I think being a role model
Mhm.
is a huge thing. I think
Mhm.
encouraging people to actually take on an experiment, right?
Mm.
And do this for yourself. And Doesn't have to be a life sentence. See what happens when
Yeah.
you do this, for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
And so have you made that 1 degree shift? I bet you have,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I like that. Just a small experiment, move it just 1 or 2%. I love that. I
Hmm.
think that makes a big difference.
I think so too.
Yeah. So, Catherine, if somebody wants to learn more about what you do and how you might be able to help them, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or learn about what you're up to?
I have a website that is the art of self craftsmanship
Okay.
.org, because I think that we're all in this we're all in this experiment of crafting ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so and the sunshine quotient is included in that also. And
Okay.
so, right, so that will there's quite a bit of information there as far as what programs I offer and how I like to work with people. There are actually a lot of just little interesting things there. You can read my blogs and whatnot. I'm happy to have people call me. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and there's also a calendar there that people can, schedule a learn more session with me, which is a short session just to ask, answer any questions that they may have in regard to programs and availability and what might go. I do like to, I have a webinar on demand there. I'm
Okay.
actually doing another webinar next Tuesday at noon.
Oh, next Tuesday at noon, Eastern.
Eastern time, Eastern
Okay.
time. And so I'll post that on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and whatnot, as far as what the registration link for that is.
Okay.
Um, and so that's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm very accessible.
Very good. Very good. Well, this has been fun for
Well, I'm
sure.
glad I've had fun being with you too.
Yeah. And is there any last comment or blessing or anything that you want to tell the people that are listening right now?
Oh, I just, you know, have a beautiful day, right?
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
Have a beautiful day. And Machen, thank you so much. It's
Thank
been a
you,
real
Catherine.
pleasure to be with you. It's always fun to be with you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.